All right, guys, this is Crazy Kevin. I'm here with my boy Joe Giannetti. Joe, how we doing?
Doing good. I got to train in a little bit, but doing for now. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Can't complain. You just had a fight coming up March 30th and it just got canceled, man. What's going through your head with that?
It sucks, man. I was also supposed to fight back in January, and I was pretty convinced I was going to be on the next season of the Ultimate Fighter, so I was from that fight. That didn't end up happening, so getting right back into this, and then, going down to lightweight, where I've been trying to make my home. But it's so hard to find fights at lightweight, and I've been telling the longest time, and then seeing this, pull out, 2 weeks out, kind of my point, and frustrating, I put a lot of work into this camp, and it's hard moving forward knowing that I'm probably going to pull.
Right. And Ali, he's been a guy that's been calling you out for a while now too, and it definitely probably stings a little bit more since he's been calling you out for a couple years, and then here he goes pulling out with the staph infection.
Yeah, no, it was funny when he took the fight. The fight was actually his idea, because we've been slated to fight each other a couple times, and he's just backed out before it was officially announced. So nobody really thinks he's already pulled out against me, but he has. And then when the promoter was offering him names for this card, I guess it was Ali. Like, what about Giannetti? And the promoter was like, "You gonna fight him at 55?" And he was like, "Yeah, let's do it." They texted me. I said, "Yeah, immediately." And all my coaches were like, "If he's in, do it, but just know he's probably gonna pull out." So all camp, I was training as hard as I could, but there was that little voice that I was trying to ignore that was gonna back out. He's not gonna show up. And then he backs out, and I was just like, "Come on, man."
Right. Now, you mentioned before that you fought before with staph infection. I mean, how bad is fighting with staph infection? I mean, do you think he could have been able to push through it?
I definitely think he could have been able to push through it. I mean, it always depends on how bad it is. When I fought with my staph infection, I didn't know I had a staph infection until afterwards. I just remember getting out of the cage and being like, "Wow, I fought like shit. I felt horrible." And then, I take a couple days off, and I still didn't feel good. And then I noticed that, I forget if it was or ingrown hair, it didn't look right. And I went to the doctors, and they said it was a staph infection, and I was like, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense." It depends on the severity of it, but it is also one of those things where, if you're 2 weeks out, all you really got to worry about is weight. Go for it. You don't have to worry about, getting better at fighting. You're not gonna do anything in the last 2 weeks that's gonna win you. If weight was a problem, then that's one thing. But say, "Oh, I missed training, so I'm out of the fight." It's kind of just to me, it seems like he was looking for an excuse, and he got it.
Right, exactly. Now, you mentioned that you were possibly going to be on the Ultimate Fighter. Talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so I had a fight booked for January, and I booked that, I think, end of November, beginning of December. And then about a week later, I saw that Ultimate Fighter put out applications for next season, and they were looking for 145 and 185. So first thing I did was text all my buddies that fight at 145, and I was like, "What do you walk around at?" And they said, "When I'm being good, 160 to 165. When I'm eating like crap, probably 170. And I was like, "Okay, well, when I eat like nothing, I walk around at 170. So I was like, 45 is not happening. And then, just looking back in my pro career, I think I fought just as many times at 170 as I had 55. Not by choice, but like I said, because it's hard finding those lightweight fights. And so to me, I'm like, all right, well, I'm already bulking up for another fight at 170. It's going to be my last one. I was like, I'm undefeated at 170. I might as well just go up one more weight class. And so I sent in the application. And when McGregor and Chandler did their season, I was in fight camp when the application process began. And I didn't know that happened until my fight. And so I sent in an application for that. It was already past the deadline. I didn't get a response. So I was like, okay, if we get a response this time, we're making progress. Got a response. We did our Zoom interview. There was a couple producers that worked the show last time I was on. We had some laughs, caught up, built it. And then, they were like, "Oh, we'll call you at the end of the month to lock you in, and then we'll do your second interview, background check, and you'll be able." Now, to me, that sounded like, we're going to give you your second interview, do your background check, and then you're all set. So in my head, I'm like, all right, I'm on the show. So I just kept bulking up, kept lifting and training. And then, I started hearing some rumblings, denied, some people second interviews, some people getting calls, and I just didn't really get anything. So I'd already backed out of the fight, and then it was like, okay, now I'm not on the show. But either way, my plan was either after my fight, that was supposed to happen in January after the Ultimate Fighter at middleweight. I was going back to like lightweight is my home, lightweight is where I thrive. But that's always been the plan. And so then, didn't get on TUF, and now I'm trying to get another fight at lightweight.
Right. I mean, now with you looking for a fight now, I mean, is there any guys in the UFC that you think you could stand a good chance against? Is there any UFC guys you maybe have an eye on even?
Yeah, and that's like the best part is I've been a big fan of this sport for years, even before I was a fighter. So I've watched it grow. I've watched it kind of slow down and be in its weird places. I think there's a good amount of guys at 155 that I can handle. I got a personal gripe with Paddy Pimblett. I still think I smoke that dude. That's going to be one of those things one day where everyone's just going to hound me and say, you don't deserve it, you don't deserve it. I don't care whether I deserve it or not. I smash that dude 10 out of 10 every time. And it's one of those things where it's like, I do this for money, I do this for my family to take care of them. So if that's the money fight, and that's the easiest money fight I can get.
That would definitely be a fun fight. I mean, I was definitely looking at the lightweight rankings. I mean, I think Lando Venado would be a good one, or maybe even an Ultimate Fighter matchup with Roosevelt Roberts. I think that would be another fun one too, potentially.
Yeah, no, I've always looked at Lando Venado. He's got such a funky style. I would love to get in there with him. I feel like it's a banger of a fight.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, with the Ultimate Fighter, is there anything like behind the scenes that like an average person wouldn't know that goes on?
Not really. I think the coolest thing that I learned when I got on there is the way groceries and everything work. Is there's literally just a list on a counter with your name on it, and it's like, what do you want? And then they go out and get it. It's like the tooth fairy before. So like I'll go out there and I'll put down all my groceries, and then the next morning it's in a cabinet with my name on it, and I'm like, this is sick. So after my first fight, I was like, I want a big bag of pretzel M&Ms, and the next morning a bag of pretzel M&Ms was waiting for me in the kitchen.
No, that's pretty sweet. And then I believe you were like 22 years old. Got to be in like a nice mansion too. I mean, that's got to be sweet too to be in a sweet house like that too.
Oh yeah, I felt like a celebrity. I was living the big time. It'd be nice to be in a house like that when I'm not cutting weight and exhausted from training.
Right.
But it was fun all the same. Hot tub out back, pool, everything. There's a table inside, and the house was massive. I think it's like a $5 million house. 22 years old, living in a $5 million mansion for a couple months ain't so bad.
Yeah, no, I can't. Yeah, can't complain there. Now, on the Ultimate Fighter, was there any scenes that you wish they might have put on that they didn't?
No, to be honest, I think they pretty much captured everything. They were pretty good about making sure that we all got our moments, like letting people know who we are. I always used to hear from past people that were on TUF that like, oh, well, you missed so and so, or like, oh, this guy was actually a dickhead, but he came off nice on the show. I feel like they captured all of us really well. Like people that weren't liked, it was pretty spot on. People that were liked, I think it was also pretty spot on. I got into it with guys, that got aired, but I think they pretty much got everything on there.
That's awesome. Now you were on the season with Daniel Cormier. How was it to work with him?
It was awesome. He absolutely tortured us in the best way possible. I told everybody here at home, it was a wrestling camp. We're here to fight, but like the intensity, the structure, everything, like it was a wrestling camp with some MMA involved. And then every weekend, every Friday night, Team Stipe was going out to like steak dinners and bowling and go-karts, and we were like, yo, coach, when are we going? And he would look at us and he was like, do you want a steak dinner or do you want to be in the UFC? I was like, all right, that's a good point. I was like, I'll get back to hitting the bag.
That's awesome. When Daniel Cormier was in there training with you, was there any training partners of his that he brought in during the show?
Yeah, so he brought in Deron Wynn, Ian Velasquez, Javier Mendez. For a couple days, he ended up bringing in Jordan Burroughs, which who I looked up to in high school when I wrestled. That was insane to even be in the same room as him. John Bunch brought in so many guys that were so helpful. And, I did most of my sparring rounds when it was my time to fight with Ian Velasquez and DC, and it was just the hardest rounds of my life.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Now, learning from all those different great fighters, I mean, what was something that you took away that made you grow as a fighter?
Just the intensity, like everybody always calls DC like the king of the grind, and it's so true. Like he'll even be doing workouts with us, and you can just see like the competitiveness with him. Like things you're pushing a little too hard, like he'll push even harder. And so I've kind of adopted that. So like whenever I'm in a training room with lifting or doing cardio, it's like whoever I'm with, like we can be friends, but like I'm competing. Like if you're benching and you're doing 7 reps, well, I want to do at least 8. We're on the bike and you're doing 50 RPM, I want to do 55. And it's just made my training more and more intense. And then especially going out to AKA, training with guys like Habib, like I might not keep up, but I'm trying to keep up and do better than him in training. And it's just made me elevate everything.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm sure training with Khabib was definitely intense. On top of that, I believe you started your career as a wrestler. How was starting your career as a wrestler, and do you believe that was the best way to kind of start as an MMA fighter?
Yeah, for sure. I think wrestling is the greatest base for MMA. My only regret was I got into Division II school. I wanted to wrestle. I don't know if I would have ended up being varsity. I was horrible in high school, but I wanted to wrestle in college. And then when I got accepted, they showed me how much it was going to cost. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to start fighting now. So getting a little bit more wrestling experience would have been cool, but even the things the body mechanics that I took from wrestling helped me greatly in learning jiu-jitsu so much faster and signed up at the exact same time as me. So even if you don't succeed at pure wrestling, there's so many things that you take from it mentally and physically that will help in jiu-jitsu, MMA, and sport.
What advice do you have for any young fighters that are coming up?
Wrestle as much as you can. I've seen so many guys that are good at wrestling, whether high school or college. Like, I want to do MMA because I'm so sick of wrestling, and I'm like, I hate to break it to you. You're going to be wrestling almost every day. It's just our sport. It is until somebody figures out the way to nullify wrestling. Greatest. Keep doing that. And just don't ever drink your own food. Don't ever think you're too good or good enough. So many times I see guys that go on like 4-0, 5-0 run, and they're like, oh, I'm the best, I'm this, I'm that. And it's like, you can be confident, but as soon as you're like, I'm good enough, you're losing. If you're not getting worse, the competition is getting better when you stop. So that's something that I think a lot of people.
Yeah, I definitely think that's good advice there. When it comes to stand-up, what do you think is the best martial art to kind of train on the feet?
I think you could go either way. Honestly, I would say the boxing or like a kickboxing, taekwondo. My style's a little bit of both. Coming up, I had a boxing coach at my original gym, and he was a pure boxer, and there was so much that I had to mentally filter out because I knew, oh, this will work great, but this won't work in MMA. So my base was a lot of boxing, and then as I got more and more into the sport, I looked into guys like Stephen Thompson, kind of adopted his style. Because I feel like the biggest downside with pure boxing, even on the come up at the youngest age, they're just down to brawl. They stand and bang. Even though they're some of the fastest guys, some of the hardest hitters, greatest footwork, you'll see guys sit in the pocket and stand and bang, and you can't do that with forearms, only for so long.
Right. Now, you mentioned Taekwondo. I'm also a Taekwondo instructor. Just a personal question here. I always wonder, why don't fighters, Stephen Thompson uses it a little bit, maybe even a little bit like Michael Venom Page, but how come like more of those karate-style fighters don't use like more of the side kick? I feel like that's an effective kick, at least in Taekwondo, but how come it's not used more in MMA?
I think it's one of those things that you have to be the level of MVP. Thompson, say it to me all the time too, why don't I use my side kick? Mm-hmm. And I think with guys like us that take that, sideways stance, if in 4-ounce gloves at least, you parry my side kick or step off that center line, and I have to step past you, you counter with a strong overhand, I'm done. Like
okay.
It's gonna rock me or sit me down. So if you can figure out how to, with your style, time it well and put it out there like Thompson does, I think it's a very good tool. I use it very rarely, but I think it's one of those ones that turns into a high risk, low reward. You don't see too many people get sat down with them in MMA, but like I said, the counter that's there is only a big counter.
Right.
I don't want to get hit with that.
No, fair enough. No, that's a good point. Now, what is it like going into a fight? Like, what kind of goes through your head going into a fight when you're going into it?
So many different things. When I'm walking out, things go through my mind, and why the hell am I doing this? And then 2 is like, this guy's gonna beat my ass if I don't beat his ass. So I just kind of gotta get in there and do my thing. Before the fight, it's weird because I stay calm all night. I'm joking around with my coaches, my buddies, anybody else fighting on the card. And then as we get closer and closer, it's like good mood kind of starts to fade. You're 3 fights out, you're 2 fights out, like the smile fades, and I kind of just start locking in and just think about how miserable fight camp was. I tell people all the time, like, I'm so happy after I fight. I know that all my sacrifice and all the miserable training sessions that I didn't want to go to and I pushed through with it. And right before I'm walking out, I'm in the back room, I'm just thinking, remember that day you didn't want to go. Remember that day you got hurt, but you kept pushing through. Remember how hungry you were cutting weight. Remember how much that sauna sucked and you did it. Like, that's because of this person. Now you got to go out there and make it worth it, make it all pay off. And it kind of just puts me in that zone of like, all right, I did everything possible, now just go.
I love it. Well, when you're going through your fight, is there any go-to music you have to get pumped up to get ready to go into the cage?
Honestly, it's weird. It varies.
Your fight, is there any go-to music you have to get pumped up to get ready to go into the cage?
Honestly, it's weird. It varies.
I've been teaching for about 6 years now, and I have about 150 students at my location. My question to you is, with all those students that are coming every single day and are trying to get better, what advice do you have to get them to keep coming every day, to keep striving to grow?
I think the biggest thing is, reminding them that, especially if their goal is to fight or whatever, you can have an intense training session, you can have a hard training session with being yelled at or being pushed past where they thought they could go, but you could still have fun, whether it's before, during, or afterwards. Like, this is fun. Like, this is, especially if you're not planning on fighting, this is just extracurricular. It's just something you're doing to, improve mentally or physically, or technically even. And that's something I try to explain to all my teammates all the time, is like, right before class starts, sitting around laughing, joking, having a good time. While we're grilling, we can laugh and have a good time. As soon as we're going live, like, we're here to win. We're going. And then after we're done, start cracking jokes. Oh, you tapped me with this. Oh, you kicked me with that. Like, it's all here to have fun. And I think that also builds the team environment. Like, there's so many guys that'll text me and be like, hey, I'm doing a jiu-jitsu tournament and can you come in tonight and help me with ABC? And if I'm not fighting, I'm like, yeah, sure. And if I am fighting, I'm like, hey, I'm fighting this weekend. Next week we can work on it. Or ask so-and-so. He's really good at it. And guys just have no problem helping each other. So, like, keep it light, keep it fun, but know that the main goal is to get better, and it might get a little intense, but after all said and done, you're gonna have fun.
Yeah, I definitely think that's good advice. I definitely think the vibes are super important, and it definitely comes with being like a great teacher and everything. So, yeah, I definitely appreciate that. It's definitely good advice. Joe, last message before we let you go for the fans that are going to be watching this video.
If you want to see me in the UFC, let them know. On every social media platform, every comment thread, tag Danny, Sean Shelby, UFC. It is very hard for me to find fights at lightweight, and I'm not going up to welterweight again. I already got my belt up there twice, and I'm back at lightweight. This is my home. I'm the best lightweight in New England. I'm going to be in the UFC by the end of the year. You guys can help speed up the process by letting them know you want to see me in. And if you just want to see me get punched in the face in there, I don't care. Tag them, let them know. I want to see this kid get punched in the face.
Yeah, man, let's do it. I've been waiting to see you in the UFC for a long time, and yeah, I hope people tag UFC, Dana, whatever it takes. We definitely want to see you back, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate you.